I loved this conversation with Andy McDowell, where he talks about everything from servant leadership to team members who he actually names as artists, to love and fear. I think there's so much packed into this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy's with Generate Your Value, and he really means your value, not your business's value. How do you generate your value in your life? How do you become an expert in what you do, but apply it through servant leadership? We go through everything such as what is a self-leader and how do you accomplish the goal of being a self-leader? And I think, Rich, the most fascinating thing for me is, are you generating an ROI for your team members?
And one thing for people to dial into is listen to the conversation about how the person across the table from you has a choice to invest in you and your business, and how do we invest in them back? Here's Andy McDowell.
Andy, welcome to the Entrepreneurs United podcast. Look forward to learning more about how you can generate more value, generate your value. And one of the things that caught me when I was doing a little bit of research is you have a good quote from Albert Einstein, which is something along the lines of, creating more value is more important than success. What is that quote again?
Rather than be a man of success, be a man of value.
I think we should start right there, right off the bat. Why is that a quote that means a lot to you? Is an Albert Einstein quote. Please tell us where that comes from and why that's at the epicenter of what you bring to entrepreneurs.
Well, it's a couple things, right? So first, there's the connotation of be more outwardly focused than inwardly focused. Generally, when we talk about success, we're talking about our own success, and society has its own ways of representing that success. But so part of what I read into that quote is be outwardly focused, be more about others, and not only be about others, be more about value from the perspective of others are unique individuals that have different needs, wants, desires, and how are you going to fit um, in the ability to bring value to whatever those wants, needs, desires are, the person that's in front of you, whether you just met them on the street or they're a family member
Yeah.
on all the spectrums. So it's my mantra in life, and how is it that I can be of value to you two gentlemen today, having met you for the first time, as well as
Sure.
my best friend or somebody of that nature that I've known for years.
I love that. And what that stems from, I believe as well, I saw this in somewhere else in your profile, is servant leadership seems to be very important to you.
Hmm.
It's something that I learned about 10 years ago. Even the words servant leadership together, I was like, what is this? This is interesting. And as I dove deeper and deeper into it, the meaning became clearer and clearer to me of how important that is to be a servant leader in today's society, especially with today's workforce and everything that's going on. Um, I need to dive a little bit deeper. Maybe Rich is more qualified to dive a little deeper. Where is this coming from? Why is it your mantra? Why do you want to be a servant leader? What's behind all of this in your upbringing or in your professional career that led you to this point of this is who I am and this is what I want to be?
Well, it's a life journey, right? It's a life journey of discovering who you are and what your why is in life. And um, every time I've turned a corner, every time I've pulled the layer of the onion back in an effort to discover who I am, to be curious, to be intentionally curious about who is Andy McDowell? What is this guy about? What's he going to do in the world? No matter what kind of structure system I looked at, whether it be astrology, human design, Myers Briggs, it all points to one thing, and that one thing is to be an expert in the field and to be a servant leader to try and help people improve their lives from that perspective. So, and that's not to say it was one big aha moment on a given hour on a single day. It's been a lifetime of discovery. Um, if we're going to have a robust world. We have to bring all the talents and skills that every single person in this world has to offer. In order to do that, you have to allow them to be creative in nature, and they won't be creative in nature until you get rid of things like fear, judgment, shame, all those pieces out of the world or out of each individual self, right? And we can go down the whole rabbit hole of love versus fear conversation if you want, and how that stems from it. But that's how I get fulfillment for myself, is being able to sit in a room full of non-judgment with a person and say, all right, you're on a journey. I'm on a journey too. Let's go on a journey together and let's figure out what makes you tick, what makes you bring all that creativity out that you have, even if you deny it about yourself. And let's help you make an impact in the world to be a person of value to the world in all of its shapes, forms, and colors that value comes in.
You said sit in a room of non-judgment,
Hmm.
and I'm curious as to your take on, is that even possible? Aren't, as human beings, we are judging beings constantly on what we agree with, what we don't agree with? Does that apply
Hmm.
to me? Does it not? Do I want to spend time here? Do I not? Like, isn't that how our mind is wired, is through massive judgment? And how can someone get closer to this non-judgment space you're talking about?
Um, it's possible. I mean, it's like saying, look at Gandhi. Some people may look at her life as that's the ultimate uh, human life we know in history that got as close to enlightenment as possible. Um, to be as non-judgment as possible. That's not to say we're perfect human beings will ever achieve that, but to get as close to that as we can, you have to be inwardly focused and worried about yourself and how you show up in the world, and to say, I'm not going to own your journey. It's your journey. You're making the choices about what you want to be in this world, and you need to have ownership of it. I'm not going to judge it because I'm not you. I'm going to be here to love you, support you, help you in what your journey is and what lessons you have to learn while you're on this planet from that perspective. But I'm not going to sit here and compare myself to you because it's your race. I have my own race. You have your race. And I'm not going to sit here in comparison or judgment because I'm a unique individual that has their own pieces to offer and value to the world, and so do you. So how can we make 1 plus 1 equals 3 here and together make a big impact in the world? I'm not going to sit here and judge where you are in that path or journey. I'm here to help you and support you. So, how can I do that? How can I be of value to you in that effort? And let's together go make the world a better place. That's a mindset. That's a mindset that you have to get yourself to. Um, Before you can start thinking that way, acting that way, behaving that way, and to try and reduce judgment as much as possible, knowing that you'll never be perfect, but you want it to be as small as possible every day of your life.
This word of how can I be of value to you, and the opening that John provided, where you said the value is really about serving others. And then John asked about servant leadership, and you
Mhm.
added this component to it that I haven't heard before, and I really like it, which is be an expert in the field and a servant leader as you apply that expertise.
Mhm.
What is your expertise that you have to offer the world, and how are you serving people through it?
So my uniqueness, we were talking about it a little bit in the green room before we hit the record button, right? So I'm a Georgia Tech grad, electrical engineering major. Um, when people think of engineers, they think of left brain, logic, problem solving skills, likes to follow the rules, those type things. But part of my uniqueness is that I also have very strong right brain skills. I'm a singer, I'm a guitar player, I've been a photographer since I was a teenager, and I had very strong strategic skills in my corporate career because I can sit down and have a very technical, complex conversation with you about aviation and airspace design and how to handle as many aircraft in an hour at an airport if you're an air traffic controller. Not a lot of people can do that, but at the same time, I can think out of the box. I can get creative with you. We can spitball some ideas in a non-judgmental way. We can get creative with things that we do to try and grow the business or help a customer. I always call my team members artists. If we're going to develop new airspace for an airport, um, the white canvas is all the rules set by organizations like ICAO and so forth about how you can build airspace safely. That's the sandbox, so to speak, that we can play in. But as long as you're playing in there, let's get creative. Let's get creative on different ideas of how we can bring in aircraft into and out of an airport and get the best design that we can for whatever the goals or what success looks like for that airport and where it's trying to go strategically from that perspective. So that's when I get on podcasts, much like your own. That's generally something that people come on board with is what really interested in your bio because you say you're an engineer by trade and a creative by nature. And we don't find many people like that, and that's
Yeah.
why uh, I approached life or approached leadership with my team as a life coach more than a boss, which is part of my bio too. From the perspective, I can think on both sides of the brain fairly easy, and I can you pick and choose which way you want to go. I can talk strategically and get creative with you, but in that conversation, I might bring some logic, tactics to going, okay, here's some risk and here's some problems we might have with that if we go down that road creatively
Yep.
from that perspective. So that's part of the uniqueness I bring is I can get emotional and creative and all those type things we do, but at the same time, I can bring out the tactics and the big stick and the logic, so to speak, and go, eh, gonna be kind of hard to implement that. Not we will not rule it. We'll throw it up on the whiteboard and leave it up there and keep thinking about it. But here's some challenges that we might have.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, I love that background, and you're right. I married an engineer, and so that's that side, and I'm on the business side, and neither of us have the creative side, and it's very difficult to find somebody as well rounded in terms of the technical components, the
Mhm,
creative components. I could see that being very applicable to the businesses that you work with and the entrepreneurs that you work with.
mhm.
So I love that, and I just want to make sure I got this right. Can you repeat, Rich? Be an expert in a field and be a servant leader. What's what it was you said?
Well, yeah, what I heard from him was that uh, servant leadership included a component of being an expert in the
Mhm.
field and applying it through servant leadership.
Applying it through servant leadership. Perfect. I love that too.
Yeah. So I firmly believe the number one job of a leader is to build other leaders,
Yes.
and at the very minimum, the person across the table may not want to have or be a leader from the standpoint of a senior manager position.
Yep.
But at the very least, you can help them become a self leader in
Yep.
an effort to maximize their talent and their skills and bring to bear or maximize the creativity and the talents and skills they have to contribute to the team and the mission and purpose of the team and the results that you're looking for.
Yep. So this is maybe a very macro level question. The name of your company is Generate Your Value.
Hmm.
The name of your company is not generate more value from your company,
Nope.
generate more value from your team. It's generate your value.
Hmm.
And you're also a Catalyft coach, which I'd like to understand a little bit more about Catalyft. Richard and I are not familiar with Catalyft, so I'd love to learn a little bit more about exactly what that
Sure.
is.
Sure.
But if I had to, after this, first 15 minutes of conversation with you, understand what you do, uh, what I understand you to be at this particular moment is you're an expert in the field of entrepreneurial coaching for both life and business so they can generate
Hmm.
more value from themselves
Exactly.
through everything that they touch and do, and you deliver that through applying servant leadership. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I want to take a step back before I get to Catalyft and exactly what you do and how you do it.
Hmm.
Um, how do you go from the field you were in aeronautical engineering, I'll call it, to this different life of, you know what? I actually want to provide value to entrepreneurs and small to medium sized businesses and help them generate their value. How does that jump happen? Both, why did you make that decision and change in your life?
Hmm.
B, what qualified you to then be like, you know what? I'm going to go do this for entrepreneurs because I'm an expert in that field now. Where's that jump off point? So we can understand how you got to
Yeah.
be at this particular moment.
Well, it's a couple things. One of my favorite things that I did in my Boeing era was to mentor people, particularly those that were either starting out on a leadership career or was fairly new, fairly young at it, so to speak. From that perspective, I mean, and we all have things in life that really gets under your craw, so to speak, right? You're just like, ugh, when you see it in the news, whatever. And for me, it's poor leadership. Leadership, you're making decisions that are going to possibly significantly impact people's lives. And so, A, are you taking it seriously? Are you looking at it through that lens? And B, are you doing what you need to do within yourself to make sure that you're making good, fair, just decisions, looking for the win-win, both from a company perspective and personnel perspective, to get the best situation that you possibly can in the situations that you face. And so, what drives me is to uh, do this coaching business to give people the tools, the training, the coaching to be good, if not great leaders,
Yep.
both in their life, because that's where it starts in your life. It starts within to be a self leader, as well as to be a leader, whether you're in the corporate world or you're an entrepreneur starting off on your own business and want to be successful in your business. Well, a lot of it's going to come down to good choices that you're making, both for the business in general, where it's whether you're talking about sales, marketing, operations, whatever, but also for each individual person that works for you.
Got it. By the
And,
way, one of our former guests wrote a book that I think you would love to read, or maybe cringe in reading. But the name of the book was called Leadership,
oh, haven't heard of that one.
and a fascinating episode and conversation just about the things that leaders do, and you're like, really?
Hmm.
And you're right. Like when you see things in leaders, and I work with entrepreneurs, and sometimes I see their maybe the words or the actions they use, and I'm like cringing, kind of going, oh, if you only knew how your team just received what you just
Yep.
said,
Yep.
factually. But there's an issue, I would like to dive just a little bit deeper into this because obviously this episode is for entrepreneurs and people growing their companies,
Hmm.
and a lot of times the entrepreneurs are experts in their fields.
Hmm.
But the problem is, um, the they don't bring all the talents and skills together of their own team to make 1 + 1 = 3, and they
Hmm.
create this zone of fear within their organization and judgment within their organization and shame within their organization. I think when you were talking about that, you were talking holistically because we had an episode the other day, and we believe even in the world we have an issue of being too judgmental, not listening to other people's opinions.
Yes.
Not, it's
Yes.
a massive issue that we have going on right now in America. But within
Absolutely.
an entrepreneur's company, if we just stay there for a second and not get too geopolitical, you know, why is that an issue? Why is it an issue that when you work with all these entrepreneurs that you work with,
Mm.
what is usually the thing you have to unblock that if I'm listening to this episode right now, maybe I'm questioning, ooh, maybe my culture has some of these components. What do you usually need to unblock when you work with an entrepreneur to free them up to generate more value from their efforts and what they do?
So let's open the Pandora's box of love versus fear.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times entrepreneurs either feel like they have to do all the heavy lifting themselves, and they just have a few people sprinkled around them to help them with some of the mundane work because they just don't have enough hours in the day, as opposed to really understanding their skills and talents and letting them be a bigger part, if you will, of the team. At the end of the day, as a leader, and I don't care whether you're a business owner or a senior manager, director, VP at a corporation, what you get measured on, number one thing you get measured on is results. So either you are the most phenomenal person in the world and can do everybody's job yourself. And then if that's the case, then you can take all the credit for all the results that you get. Go for it. Or you can understand that to really maximize the results, it takes a village to um, raise a human being. It also takes a village to um, be successful in a business. And the more you can start realizing that and start maximizing the culture that you have, as well as the people that you have and the creativity that they have, skills and talents that they have, to bring it to bear, the better results you're going to get, more quote success for your business. And do you realize that the person across the table has a choice? They have a choice. They have a choice to be sitting in that chair across the table. And do you appreciate that? And that they are investing a very limited resource in their life, which is time. They're investing their time to come work for you. So they are investing in you. They're investing in you as a business. They're investing in you as a leader. So are you turning it around and making it a win-win to say, I'm going to match you, I'm going to meet you in energy, capability, everything else, so that we find a win-win. I'm going to invest in you with training and time and coaching and everything else to get the best out of you. And I'm going to approach it from a life perspective, if you allow me to. Some people won't know. It's just business. That's fine. Let's just talk about business. And let's invest in each other, both from a company, macro company perspective, as well as two individuals working on the same team. And let's get after it and go beat the competition and service the marketplace and all those typical business things. But if you don't have that mindset, you're not maximizing or setting up the opportunity to have as much success as you possibly can. That's the way I approach
Yeah.
things with my clients in coaching is, how much are you investing in them as much as they are investing in you? And do you realize they're investing in you?
Andy, I just had a light bulb go off in my head. You articulate things so clearly, and it helps me process things maybe in a little bit of a different way. And I'm
Hmm.
hoping it's happening for our entrepreneurs as well. Rich, here's an aha moment I just had that is never talked about in business that Andy just unblocked for me. When you hire an employee and you pay them a salary,
Hmm.
the entrepreneur's mindset is, I made an investment in that employee, right? But the reason they're making an investment in that employee because the employee is going to deliver goods and services that's going to generate for that business a return on that investment. What if you reverse the script? When an employee chooses to go work for a leader, they're making an investment. They're
Hmm.
taking a risk. They're bringing all their skill sets to the table. What's their return on investment? what is the return on investment on the employee going to work for the entrepreneur? And how much does the entrepreneur wake up every day going, I'm going to give this employee the best return on investment they ever had in their life? And you mentioned it earlier. I want to be a life coach more than a boss. I want to help them progress in their career. I want to help them drive to where they want to go. Very rarely, ever, I don't think I've ever, including myself as an entrepreneur and leader, have ever said, Rich, you're now a new team member, you're new artist in our company, you're a new team member in our company. What can I do to give you a good return on investment on your decision to
Mhm.
come work for our company? Have you ever heard that, Rich?
No. And I think you make a fair point, which, as I was listening and processing what both of you were saying, getting paid for work, particularly in the form of a salary, or if it's hourly, or bonus, or in any way, it's kind of table stakes for the relationship. That's where the relationship starts in the investment. Yes,
Mhm.
I'm coming to work. I expect to get paid. If I'm not going to get paid, how am I going to fund my life? I need to get paid. That's table stakes. The entrepreneur says, yes, I understand I need to pay you because that's how I have people working here and I'm trying to get a good ROI. Great. And you're right, John. I think often that's the end of the thinking for an entrepreneur is I'm investing in you because I'm giving you money and I'm short on money. I'm trying to build my business. That's the most important thing that could actually sink my business is if I don't have enough cash flow and I'm giving you some of my cash flow, therefore I'm investing in you. And what's not realized is that's just table stakes. Like the race hasn't even started for the entrepreneur on getting the best out of that person, on that person suggesting how they could get the best out of you as an employer. Like,
Okay.
I think you're very right, John. And then in terms of unblocking something, I'm with you on that. Andy,
Can I
what are your thoughts there as you hear
yeah,
how we're processing?
can I suggest something? The what you're just saying about salary. If we were to use two business terms, strategy and tactics, what you just talked about in the salary is a process. It's tactics. It's saying, okay, I'm hiring you as a person to come in to work on these job responsibilities and needs of the business. That's the tactical side of the business. Now, you and I sitting across the table, let's think strategically about the business and our relationship here for the future. If we're going to dream, what entrepreneurs do, they dream. They dream about what the business could be, and they start. If they're doing it right, they're finding time to work on their business. They're thinking strategically about the business. So if I've hired this person and I want to bring them along with the business, and develop those skills and talents so that they're contributing more and more, bringing more value to the table. Strategically, how would I do that? How would I get the best out of them so that strategically we can work together on the business and grow it so that we all can be successful in this?
Well, I think it's maybe a rhetorical question, but I'll jump in and say that actually I think connects back with where you started a little bit ago, which is love versus fear.
Hmm.
That if that individual is afraid that taking risks may jeopardize their career, if they're afraid that there's a full of judgment zone, if they're afraid, generally coming to fear, you're not unlocking the absolute best of their capability. If they feel loved and they feel embraced and they feel endeared to
Hmm.
the leader first, in my opinion, and then the culture, and then maybe the service or product, if they feel that, and in the absence of fear, they will take risks and outperform the person who there's a power dynamic between direct supervisor and direct report that's fear based versus love based. And I think that encapsulates some of what you are working with leaders on, Andy, is to work with leadership and servant leadership specifically. And servant leadership is not fear based leadership.
Mm-mm. No, I always tell my mentees, don't be afraid to hire smarter people than yourself. Because the reality of what you're trying to bring to the table is a vision. an emotionally safe culture, uh, bring value to the employees to help them to grow as people, as well as the true strict sense of the word about an employee and what they're bringing in terms of work for the business. Because at the end of the day, let's go back to the early part of our conversation. It's about results. If you're going to maximize those results to get the most success, you need a well-tuned, well-primed engine, meaning your team, that's going to go out there and go help achieve it.
Yep.
And if I can have 2 minutes, let me take you through a business tool I use helping with leaders.
Yeah,
So,
please.
uh, strategically, we all know it's been around for years. This little tool called a SWOT analysis,
Hmm.
right? Strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. And it helps you to understand sort of your position in the marketplace. Where are we? We pull out that strategic map, like a road map. Go, okay, where are we? We in Dallas? We in Atlanta? Where are we? And so you take a rectangle, divide it up into four rectangles, strength in one box, weakness, etc. You write out some. Hopefully, you're being honest about it, and you're writing out some bullets about the strength of the business, what we think we're kind of weak on, where we have opportunities, if you will, to develop them into strengths, and then where's our opportunities for growth, and where's our threats. Where might we have disruptions in the marketplace or for our business? So let's key on that word threats. Now, let's take that for the individual. And part of my platform at Generate Your Value is getting people to understand how much overlap there is between life and business. So we take that SWOT tool and we take the word opportunity and change it to love. Take that word threat and change it to fear. Now, why would we want to do that? Opportunities in business is where we have chances for growth, where we would love ourselves as a company to want to go after our passions and desires and find success for our business. And our fears is what stops us from going after the life that we want for ourselves, because they're disruptors. They hold us where we're at. It, it's comfortable. Wouldn't it be comfortable for a company to just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again? Just ask Kodak. Yeah, we're just going to keep making film. Where did that get you? From that perspective. So, if you can take bullet items under love and say, what do I love doing? This helps you to find your why too, right? So, what do I love to? Where are my passions? What can I leverage, if you will, to find joy, happiness, and success in our life? And then where's our fears? What stops us from going after that in our own lives? Is it shame? Is it judgment? Is it comparison? Is it whatever it may be? All those what I call uh, non-flight, non-physical danger fears. We're not talking about those. Those are ingrained in our DNA. It's about the emotional aspect. They usually come from traumas in childhood and so forth. But what stops you from going after the life that you truly want for yourself? Those are the bullet items that go in the fear category. And now you have an understanding of where you're sitting in life. And oh, by the way, if you learn these kinds of skills as a 20, 30-year-old and a young entrepreneur or a desire to be an entrepreneur, and you work on these things for your life and you become comfortable with these kinds of tools, guess what? Now you're ready to start a business.
Yeah,
You
confidence.
already know them. You already know them. All you're doing is substituting the things that are related to the business for the things you already did in your life. And hopefully, what you're doing on the business side aligns with what you're doing with your life, because that's what's going to get you out of the bed in the morning. That's what's going to help you in those days. And you're going to have them. I have them today as an entrepreneur. You're just like, oh, crap. What a day. Is this day ever going to end? Kinds of things. So if you can hang on to that why, if you can hang on to that mission and purpose for your life when those days are rough, you're going to have the same kind of days in your business that's going to help you develop your grit, develop your persistence and everything to keep pushing through it, because it's not going to be an easy ride. You
So
know,
Andy, take me into the implementation of this. Is this
that's exactly where I was
something
going.
that I would ask a artist, a team member,
mm,
a direct report
mm-hmm,
to complete on themselves? What do you believe are
mm-hmm.
your strengths and
Yes,
weaknesses? What do you love and what do you fear?
that's their homework.
And then we would have a,
And then we would sit down for an hour or two and go through it and polish it. I might ask some questions for clarification, those type things. It's going to be the building block on the future work to eventually develop a life strategy for yourself, right? A SWOT analysis in business is a starting point of a strategic conversation about where do we want to take the business. Here we are, like an airline, right? We're at this airport. We're at the Dallas airport. We want to get ourselves to JFK. Okay, we've done enough analysis to understand we're in Dallas. Okay, we're in Dallas. How are we going to get ourselves to JFK, right? If I use a simple analogy here, it's the same thing with a business. So we know where we're at now in life and in business. Now, strategically, what kind of plan are we going to put together that we're going to execute against, hopefully successfully, that's going to allow us to end up at JFK? It's
I
the
think
same
this is
thing.
a terrific gift of something immediately actionable for our entrepreneurs. That's literally a piece of your coaching method using the words love and fear
Mhm,
that our entrepreneur listeners, John and I specifically, can take this tool out tomorrow and say, hey, next week, I'd like to have a conversation with you
mhm.
around what you believe your strengths and weaknesses are. What do you love and what do you fear around here? And I just want to understand where you are so that I can
Yep,
help you get to where you want to go. I think
yep.
that's something that can be immediately actionable. And I'll tell you, I, for one, intend to take this somewhere in my world of the teams that I work with.
Yeah, absolutely love it.
It's a great structure to have a conversation around that everybody can buy into, everybody can see it and go, "Okay, I get this. This is something that we can be tactical in working through this and put together a good career plan."
And the whole idea of
Right.
taking the SWOT thinking, which is on a business, and, you know, at the end of the day, people grow businesses,
Mhm.
businesses don't grow themselves.
Nope.
So SWOT, great to analyze the business, but turning this to look at how we work with people, I think is brilliant. But, there were a couple of times you've talked about and used the word self leader.
Mhm.
And I'd like you to speak more about that and what are some of the tips or tools or mindset that you work to instill with the people who you coach so that they can be an adequate, if not excelling, self leader?
Uh, I love to have these conversations for a couple hours over a bottle of wine, but
We may be able to
so
do that.
all right, or a glass of bourbon. I'm a bourbon fan as well.
Yes.
It starts with a mindset of saying, I own my life. I am the CEO of my life, and I am the only one that's responsible for it. Nobody else. And you then migrate from that question to, okay, use an analogy. Are you in a rubber dinghy with an oar, or are you in a motorboat that has a rudder and an engine, and you're going to open up that gas cap, so to speak, and take a can of love, self love, and pour that into the gas tank of the motorboat. So if you have a fixed mindset or even a victim mindset, uh, you know, different people use different terms, but then you're in a rubber dinghy and the world's going to push you around. You got a little oar and you might be able to do a little bit of work, but basically the world is pushing you around. You're just sort of going with the flow, as they say? Or do you want to live a great life that's a journey, and on that journey, you're going to have joy and happiness every single day that you go on that journey because you are in charge of your life and you're making choices in your life that are going to bring about that for yourself. And you're going to discover things about yourself along the journey. That's not to say you have all the answers when you take that first step, but you're going to discover some things. There's seasons of life and so forth. You're going to get into situations. You're going to learn more and more and more about yourself as you go down that journey. And when you can have that kind of mindset to say, I own my life, I'm in control. The power sits here. I'm pounding my chest. The power sits here. When I take ownership of my life, the power's here, and I'm not giving that power away to somebody else, the world or a specific person. This gets into psychology and things that I'm not an expert in, but um, it's really about starting that as your foundation. And once you have that as a foundation, then it's a matter of taking the things that are similar. And this, part of my program, but generate your value is, as I mentioned before, the overlap of business with life. That you can start taking tools from business to develop that life strategy for yourself. And why does that work? Businesses were created to fulfill needs, wants, and desires in the marketplace, to solve problems, to take on challenges. And that's what life is all about. I, as a human being, have needs, wants, and desires. So I think it's a fairly easy leap, and that's for every single individual to decide. But I think it's an easy leap to say that business can be a guide, can be a structure, a system that we can look to, that we can make some tweaks to and bring it over to life and use them for ourselves to go after what we want, which I hope is to be a certain way in the world and to have joy and happiness every single day as we go down this journey on this blue spinning thing that's out in the universe that we call Earth, right? I call it the Earth School, but Earth, you know. Does that give you guys a flavor for
Yes. So
what we're going after here?
if I'm going to say, hey, Andy, got it. I'm with you. I believe it. I own my life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in control. I don't believe I'm a victim. I just listened to a podcast this morning where somebody who is very successful, very happy, said they heard at the age of 15 for the first time that what happens to you doesn't matter as much as how you react to it and what you do next. So that's some of the mindset you're encapsulating. I go, okay, I'm with you. Got it. How do I know I am being a self-leader and doing it well? How would I evaluate that? And what do I do next once I adopt that mindset?
By investing in yourself, and that investment looks like being introspective and taking time to be introspective, right? But one of my favorite phrases when my clients is, are you working in your business or are you working on your business? Because where entrepreneurs fail a lot is they spend all their time working in their business, in the tactics, in the day-to-day, in dealing with the customers walking through the door of that brick and mortar business. And they're not taking the time to sit back and get out of that, both psychologically, emotionally, as well as just physically, get out of that environment and just think strategically about, where do I want this business to go? And we as human beings can get in that same way, right? Get up every day and it's about getting the kids to the school and to the soccer game, and what do we got on the social calendar for the weekend? And okay, we're going to do a vacation. Where are we going to go do our vacation? You see where I'm going with this? It's sort of the tactics of life, and we don't take time for ourselves. to be introspective, to work on our life, just like we want to work on our business.
Yeah.
And say, okay, if I'm going to own it and work on it, uh, you could do that SWOT analysis every year. I do it between Christmas and New Year's every year. Where am I at? Where am I with my goals? Have I made movement? What worked? What didn't work this year? What lessons can I learn from this past year that I can incorporate into where I want to take my life? That's investment. That's self-leadership. Getting yourself from point A to point B, right? Just like you were with a business. I want to take the business from point A and make it to point B. That I would term that to be successful, and that's how I want to get there. Well, what about your life? Working on your life.
Andy, I subscribe 1000% to, if that's even possible, to everything you're talking about. I love it. And this is the question I ask entrepreneurs that stumps them, that subscribes to this self leadership component you just talked about owning it, fixer growth mindset, and taking business tools to your personal life.
And model it for your employees.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to an entrepreneur. Does your company have a plan? Oh yeah, no, we have a plan. Do you guys have a SWOT analysis? Oh yeah, we have a SWOT analysis. We have a 3 to 5 year plan. We got the annual plan. We got quarterly plans. We meet every quarter. We sit down. We review it. We're like whatever. Okay, great. Do you have a plan for your life? Well, no.
Or it's, what do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean?
What do you mean
A plan for my life?
What
Yeah,
does that have to do with my
exact
business?
same thing. Where's the
I'm
3 to
married.
5
I
year?
got kids. Yeah, I got a plan.
Where is the 3 to 5 year plan for your life? What are your quarterly goals for your life? Are you doing a quarterly review with your goals where are you? And they're deer in headlights going, oh, I didn't realize that's what I need to do. And what it came down, one of the tools that I use that Rich and I have talked about many, many times is the one thing. Like, what is the one thing I'm trying to accomplish in my life? What do I need to do this year to move towards that goal? What do I need to do this month or this week or today to move towards that goal? But you have to have a plan. You need to know where you're going. Just like that plane, it's never on track. It just keeps moving and moving and moving towards New York, right? Or wherever you said it was going.
Or John, they actually believe that the plan for their business is the plan for their life.
Yes.
Right.
Which is where I'm going next, Rich.
It's enmeshed. It's enmeshed.
This is where I'm going next. You talked a lot about, love versus fear, and entrepreneurs do all the heavy lifting and they're measured on results. And so I don't have time to work with you and develop you. I got to go get this thing done. Well, that's the reason why 96% of businesses never become value growth businesses with a lot of value within it, because it's a lifestyle business. They do all the heavy lifting, and when it's time for them to retire, they got to sell the business because no one else is there to take it over. And one of the things that I subscribe to, that I talk a lot about, Andy, right now, is kind of my keystone thing that I think is really important for entrepreneurs to do, which plays 1000% again into everything you're talking about, is should you be working in your business? Should you be working on your business? Or you should be developing leaders within your business that can do all of that for you? And have the pride of diversification. Go, I'll go start another business because that business is humming over there. I'm going to go over here and create more value for others in the world. And so I think this all kind of comes together in this conversation. It's something I subscribe to wholly. I think if you're listening to this as an entrepreneur and you don't have a life plan, just like your business does, get some help. And for goodness sakes, if you don't have a business plan, that's a whole different conversation we need to have about having that. But taking the SWOT analysis and personalizing it, having it, bringing all that to your personal life, I think is really, really important. I guess in closing, one thing I mentioned I wanted to talk about that I didn't really get to, and maybe you can dovetail this answer into exactly, how entrepreneurs should contact you if they want to learn more or whatever. What is Catalyft? You're a certified Catalyft coach. What exactly is that? And if entrepreneurs would like to get a little more of Andy McDowell, what's the next step?
So Catalyft is a company created by two entrepreneurs that have been very successful in the coaching business, and they're in the Denver area. And they're just two people that are like, if we really want to make an impact, have value in the world, we can't do that just with the two of us. So they created materials to have their methodology and so forth in it that they licensed to coaches, so they could spread that methodology around I can't speak, successful methodology around the world. So I use their materials in my coaching practice. That's what Catalyft is.
Okay.
Catalyft Success is the name of their company. Um, to find me, www.generateyourvalue.com is my website. You'll find my podcast episodes there, my programs, in terms of workshops, one-on-one coaching, and my mastermind like groups that I do. Um, from that perspective, my number one workshop, the only one that I offer to non-business owners, is called Pinnacle Gift, and it's about getting after your why in life. A lot of what we talked about in this episode is based on that workshop, and I offer it to anybody because it's important that everybody find their why in life. You don't have to be a business owner for that to be important.
And how would somebody go about registering for that workshop, and what's it cost?
My workshops are last anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, depends on the subject matter. They're $295. My hourly rate's $295 an hour. For
Okay.
one-on-one coaching. In my mastermind group, it meets once a month. It's only $95. A little over $1,000. You get to work with other entrepreneurs on your business.
And is that, I'm looking on the Catalyft website,
Mhm.
Catalyft Success System, and
Mhm.
they have the peer advisory boards. Is that what you're referencing as a mastermind group, or are
Yes.
those different?
Yeah, I prefer the peer-to-peer advisory, but out there in the world, everybody has heard about mastermind groups.
Yeah, yeah.
Because to me, peer-to-peer is more descriptive of what it actually is. It's entrepreneurs sitting around a table working on each other's business and learning together, about how to be successful in business.
Love it. Well, thanks for joining us here today on our podcast. You brought so many gifts. I mean, the display of expertise and servant leadership and providing value definitely accomplished that goal. If that was your goal, like you stated at the beginning of the call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only to Rich and I, but I'm sure everybody listening. So thank you for that.
Every single day in every aspect of my life, I'm trying to deliver value. Some days I'm good at it. Some days I'm not.
Well, you were good today.
But that's what I strive, right?
Well, thank you, Andy. John, I've never heard his take on servant leadership. I know servant leadership is something that is near and dear to both of us. You often bring up more often on our podcast than I do. But his take being be an expert in a field and then apply that through servant leadership. Have you ever heard of that take, and what do you think of it?
No, I never heard of that take specifically. If I was to take it a step deeper, which is still, okay, I'm an expert in a field, I'm going to apply it through servant leadership, but what does that mean? If I take that kind of another layer, a lot of times we try and answer the question. We try and solve the problem. We're the expert. I know the answer. I just give you the answer. You know what? The teacher in front of the classroom could just give the students all the answers. They're the expert. Here's the answers to all the tests. I'm the expert. And as entrepreneurs, we jump in. We're like, I got this. I'll take this and I'll solve it. What leadership skills are you developing by doing that? How are you teaching them how to fish? How are you really taking your skills as a leader and developing other leaders? And to me, that's servant leadership. And as entrepreneurs, way too many times, you don't want a mistake to happen in your business. You don't want the customer to leave because they're unhappy. And so whenever you see problems, you try and jump in and you remove the people that are currently doing it because you're the expert and you can manage it better. That does not develop the organization. It does not solve the love versus fear. It does not help the employee who came to you get a return on investment on their relationship with you as an entrepreneur. And to me, that's where you take that servant leadership a layer deeper. That's what that means to me. And I believe that Andy and I and yourself are all connected on that viewpoint.
You know, in the past, you and I have debated on the value of a performance meeting annually.
Mm.
Your take has been it's antiquated. My take is if you do it well and it's not a one off conversation with surprises, it's actually not. So I don't want to rehash that debate, but I do want to check in with you and go, what's your take on a leader doing this SWOT analysis as Andy recommends, including what do you love doing and what do you have fear about around here? If you believe that's a conversation that's a good one to be had, how often do you feel like that conversation could produce value?
I love your question. I think we need to go there. If you surveyed 100 employees in the world randomly and said you're being called into a performance review with your direct supervisor, in their minds, I'm sure 99 out of 100, if not 100 out of 100, look at that as a one-sided review. You're going to review my performance, how I did, maybe what I like doing, whatever, but it's one-sided this way to me. It's not the other way around. It's not me coming into the performance review as an employee going, I'm going to review you, Mr. and Mrs. Entrepreneur, on how well you're doing regarding my investment to come work for you. It's a one-sided directional, we're going to tell you how well you're doing. Maybe find out a little bit more what you like doing, don't like doing, what your bonus plan is going to be, but it's all directionally this way. If you flipped that switch and the annual meeting was about our relationship, and I love the way you put it, we're paying you a salary, you're delivering a good. We can talk about that as a conversation. You're delivering enough goods, not delivering enough goods, whatever. We also need to flip it the other way. You made a decision to come work for our company. You've been working here for a year now. What do you love about working here? What do you fear about working here? Where do you want to go in your life? I want to be more of a life coach than just a boss for you. And it's providing a dual-sided approach to that relationship. I think that is so valuable. And I think 1%, if that, of entrepreneurs and companies in the world do that.
I agree with everything you said. I come back to, we don't even call it a performance review. It's a performance meeting, because a performance meeting is really focused on the future of performance. It's not a performance review of just evaluating how you did in the past. It's really about setting up performance in the future. And I do believe that they should include some reciprocal feedback and conversation. It would be interesting if there were an annual performance meeting that was 70% future focused, but also 6 months later, so the cycle would be annual for both, there was a annual performance meeting for the direct report to weigh in with their direct supervisor on, hey, what do you believe are the strengths and weaknesses of our working relationship? What do you love doing around here? And what fears do you have?
Mm-hmm.
If that was, call it a June or July conversation, and then there's a January conversation that is 70% focused on the employee, I feel like that might be a cycle that would kind of balance some of the power dynamics that you have concern about in a performance review.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that, Rich, at all. And one point that I just want to, put a statement on before we move on is, if I'm an employee for you, yes, you're paying me and I'm delivering you a good, and I'm either doing that or not doing that, and we can have that conversation. But there's also the expectation of, also, when you told me I was going to be an employee here, there's going to be heat in the building, I was going to get a computer, and there's certain expectations I have as an employee beyond return on investment that maybe you're not delivering, and that forum isn't there for that. And so I just
Great.
love the complete concept of having a conversation about, are we delivering to our expectations of each other both ways? And are we getting a return on investment of each other both ways? I think there's a whole model. I think there's a whole book. I think there's a whole class. I think there's a whole everything to be done on that specifically. And that was the aha moment for me of this session, for sure, which is, our employees getting an ROI with their relationship with you? If I take it a step further, and this is just something that I just want to double down on, if you want to be a self-leader, you can't just be the leader of your business. You got to be the leader of your life. This one business or two businesses or three businesses or whatever business you're involved with are opportunities for you financially, potentially, to develop other leaders, to make an impact, to be a servant leader. They're not necessarily opportunities, unless you want it to be, where you need to work 80 hours a week running that business. And if you are running your business 80 hours a week and you're not developing those leaders to come up within your organization, well, you're not a servant leader. And is it really self-leadership? Are you really providing the best vehicle for you in your life that you can enjoy all life's joys and happinesses that are out there, versus slugging in your business and just working hard because you don't want to develop leadership? So that, to me, that's a big message that Andy sends to his entrepreneurs, and one that is very clear.
I think you just dropped a little nugget of potentially a book or an ebook that you and I could work on together that has something of a title to dual focused performance meetings.
I'm in. Let's do it.